Hey everyone, hoping I'm live. How are you? Today I am going to be showing you guys how to do some dried and pressed flowers. So welcome. My name is Alexa. I didn't say that. So there are two things that we're going to be talking about today. One is dried and one is pressed flowers. And these are a way to keep your flowers around forever. It's a great way to have a memento, maybe a special occasion, or just something beautiful that you really enjoy having. And there's many ways that you can use these once they've been dried or pressed for different crafts, different projects that you might want to do. Hi, Carmen. Hi. So the first thing that we're going to do is talk about dried flowers. And so dried flowers typically are flowers that you've taken out of water and that they will dry as they start to lose their moisture and become something that no longer decomposes. So what I've done is about a week ago, I got a beautiful bouquet of flowers. I wish I can say that it was a nice gift from my husband, but we bought these for this project. And what we did was I tied a string to the top and I left them hanging upside down. And so now you can kind of even hear these flowers are pretty dry. And the reason you hang them upside down is because you want the flowers to fall down instead of wilt. So if you hang them or leave them upright, the flower heads will actually fall down, and that way you won't have an as beautiful bouquet when they're all dried out. So you're going to want to leave them upside down. Additionally, you're going to want to put these in a location where they're not going to be in direct sunlight, and that's to preserve the coloration. And the reason that you do that is because when it's in direct sunlight, it's going to start bleaching the color out of the flowers. So by leaving this in light, you wouldn't have the dark purple or that bright yellow. It will start to actually bleach the coloration, and you'll get some lighter toned colors when you do that. So I just wanted to show you how much you can dry flowers. This is my wedding bouquet. I got married 1.5 years ago. And so my bouquet was roses and eucalyptus. And the roses actually still smell. It's actually beautiful. And the eucalyptus, I broke a piece before, that also still smells beautifully. So it's a really interesting way that you can keep something like this forever. And a lot of people I know will take the roses off, take the flowers off, put them as potpourri. You can do that. I like it just like this. I leave it on a shelf and it looks pretty, but it definitely still has some of its fragrance, which is really nice. And so these dried flowers, like I said, it's over 1.5 years that they look like this. They were darker muted reds and oranges and some yellows, so the coloration even held up. And I did nothing to this. I honestly put it on a shelf the day after I got married and left it there for 1.5 years. So it does stay beautifully. The next thing that we're going to talk about are pressed flowers. And there are multiple ways that you can press flowers. This is kind of a method that you can use if you don't have what's called a flower press. And a flower press does just that. It's 2 pieces of wood that are screwed together, and that puts weight and pressure on the flower so that you can create your pressed flowers. But if you don't have that, which I don't, there are some great ways and tips that you can do this at home without having to buy expensive materials. So one thing that I like to do if I'm going to press a flower is use actually coffee filters are great for this, because you're going to want to remove all of the liquid and that wetness out of your flower. So the coffee filters do just that. They actually help absorb some of that wetness from your flower, and that will help it dry quicker. And also, you're going to be using some books as your weights. And this is a great way to protect your book. If you put another piece of paper in there, that way it doesn't absorb into the pages of your book. So I did a trial run last week to make sure that this worked, right? And so I have my coffee filter that I placed a piece of fern and some baby's breath in that I had just cut off and put in there. And then I put it underneath a whole bunch of books in the very last page of some hard-covered books and left it there for a week. And what happened is This actually came out pretty cool. They flattened out completely, and this is completely dry at this point. So you can use this in different crafts. You can just put it in, a lot of people put it in like acrylic to make some really cool stained glass, like hanging things, really neat. So that was a fern and some baby's breath. I also did, from my mom's garden, she has a lilac bush. And the colors of the lilac obviously was purple, but I just pressed a small piece directly into the into my book, and this turned out a little bit purple, a little bit brown. You can still see some of the purple in there, but all these little flowers are pressed into a very, very thin kind of paper almost. And then the final one that I did is actually one of these little flowers from the bouquet, and I pressed this. It's still wet. It hasn't been left out long enough for it to be completely dry in my book. But you can see how flat that it's gotten under the weight of the books and things. Oh, I dropped it. But it completely pressed. And you can even see on my coffee filter that some of the pollen that was still on the flower has now been put and transferred into this coffee filter. And a good way to keep your flowers still drying while you're pressing them is you can change out that paper. You can use things like regular paper or newspaper, I mean regular by like computer paper, things like that to press. I like coffee filters because they're thin, and so you really kind of get close to the book and really flatten it out. And they're also filters, so they're made to be wet and to kind of absorb that water and help filter through all that kind of stuff. So it works really well. So as a demonstration, how I would press a flower, and these work really great. Press flowers are wonderful for your thin kind of flat flowers. I wouldn't necessarily press a rose because it's a bulb kind of flower, and so you're not going to get a very great profile of that flower. It works best with these like flatter kind of flowers. So I pull one of these off. We can do that. Pulled this out of a bouquet that I had gotten. So these are a little bit dry to begin with because I've had this bouquet for about a week now. So these are starting to dry out just a little bit and wilt a bit. But I'm gonna pick one of these guys, this one right here, and I'm cutting right where the stem is. You want the flower to come as flat as possible. Oops. So you're going to take your flower. You can still see it's got some pollen in there. It's a pretty little purple flower. The darker the color, the darker the color is going to be in your pressed flower. They do tend to lose some of their coloration, so like a yellow flower will be very pale after a while, but with this, it should stay that same darker purple color. So I'm just going to grab one of my coffee filters. Easy enough, everyone has these at home. And you're going to place your flower face down. So the petals, see how they're tucking up? You're going to put that flat down so that you see the back of your flower where the stem had been connected. And then what you do is you just gently fold over. I like to just tuck it in there. And I like coffee filters too because you can see what you're doing through them. If you use thicker paper, it's hard to see that maybe I didn't get it super flat. So coffee filters help with that too because they're a little bit more transparent. And then I just fold it over. And now this would go under my stack of books. And it'll dry there. So I could leave that for a couple of weeks and eventually it will be all dried out and I can use it for things like creating paper or bookmarks or any of those kind of beautiful things. So if you guys have any questions or comments about drying or pressing flowers, let us know. You can definitely do this with wildflowers. Just don't pick anything at Teaneck Creek. We are keeping all of our flowers for the wildlife. So, and if you're going to pick in your neighborhood, make sure you ask your neighbors. But it's great if you're going to be using things like store-bought bouquets to kind of save those colors and those flowers. Hope you guys are doing well. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.